He came to us really as a point guard, and he's become, one of the elite scoring point guards. There's a real place for the balance too, and he's got weapons.
Timeout. Carlisle's going to let him play. Haliburton steps back and hits. Tyrese Haliburton trying to take Cleveland's heart. It is over. Oh my goodness!
Coming off the screen here, and right in the grill of Giannis, and right in front of Damian Lillard.
They said his jumper looked like a slingshot someone built in shop class. Coaches whispered he was all bone, no bite. And on draft night 2020, after months of Zoom-only workouts and a busted wrist, Tyrese Haliburton watched 11 names flash across the stage before anyone dared to gamble on the lanky kid from Iowa State. He finally went 12th, and analysts immediately labeled it safe but unspectacular, while fans of at least 3 lottery teams fired off, "Thank God we passed," posts in real time. CBSSports.com, WashingtonPost.com. Yet behind every shrug lay quiet fear. Scouts had spent the year puzzling over that side spin release. The ball starts at his belly button, sails out from his right shoulder, and somehow drops through nylon 40+% of the time. One veteran evaluator was overheard calling it the ugliest sure thing I've ever seen. But a handful of analytics departments flagged the make rate as borderline historic for a college guard. CBSSports.com. What most people missed was the wiring. Haliburton had grown up threading passes through summer league double teams just to keep older kids from shoving him off the court. The odd mechanics were born from backyard survival. Get it up quick or get it swatted. By the time he hit Ames, his release was clocked at under 0.4 seconds, faster than Steph Curry's average. And when pandemic restrictions turned the 2020 pre-draft circuit into a set of isolated gym showings, that blur of a jumper spooked risk-averse executives who couldn't put their hands on the data. Rumor has it at least 2 front offices scrubbed Haliburton off their boards after a single workout where he bricked 5 straight pull-ups. Never mind that he drained the next 12. Meanwhile, Sacramento's analytics chief reportedly spent the entire night before the draft rerunning lineup projections that all screamed the same thing: take the swing. 1 hour later, the Kings pulled the trigger, setting Twitter ablaze with side-by-side freeze frames of his catapult form and Kevin Martin's old hitch. Haliburton hardly cared. In his first presser he grinned, held up the jersey and deadpanned, "I shoot funny, but it goes in." Those 5 words turned into a meme, a t-shirt, and, eventually, an indictment of every team that doubted him. Because the very next season, he would torch those same franchises with a shot they mocked, and one mid-season phone call would shift his story from promising rookie to centerpiece of the NBA's boldest trade. Section 2. Sacramento's gamble, instant regret. 500 days. That's all the time it took for Sacramento to pivot from Haliburton and Fox, the backcourt of the future, to "we just shipped our brightest spark halfway across the country." On February 8, 2022, Kings GM Monty McNair detonated the deadline by flipping Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson for 2-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis. The move stunned league insiders. Haliburton, who had been assured he was safe less than 24 hours earlier, found out from his agent, not the front office. "I was blindsided and crushed," he later admitted, adding that he cried in the hallway before boarding a red-eye to Indianapolis. NBCSports.com. BasketballNews.com. Within minutes, NBA Twitter lit up like an electrical storm. Some analysts praised the Kings for betting on an all-star big, but a louder chorus dubbed the deal the biggest heist since the Kawhi rental, pointing to Haliburton's elite efficiency, bargain rookie contract, and sky-high ceiling. AroyaLPayne.com. Kings fans flooded comment sections with shock emoji strings. Even rival executives privately wondered why a small market team would surrender a cost-controlled playmaker posting 41% from deep and 10-plus assists per 36. SacB.com. SacB.com. The fallout grew uglier as months passed. Sabonis put up his usual double-double blur, but Sacramento missed the 2022 playoffs, then flamed out in the 2023 first round. And, after another stumble in 2025, local writers were already ranking the swap alongside the franchise's great misfires. AroyaLPayne.com. To twist the knife, a Sam Amick report revealed the Pacers had originally asked for De'Aaron Fox. Only a last-minute pivot spared Sacramento's marketing centerpiece, and may have cost them a generational floor general. Sports.yahoo.com. Haliburton, meanwhile, landed in Indiana like nitro in a go-kart. Rick Carlisle handed him the keys to the league's fastest offense, and the kid responded by spraying no-look lasers, drilling logo threes, and cracking jokes about his funny release after every dagger. In his first 20 games as a Pacer, the team's pace and offensive rating leapt into top 5 territory, turning Gainbridge Fieldhouse into nightly track meets. Fans started wearing t-shirts that read, "Sacrifice," a not-so-subtle jab at the Kings' front office. And yet, for all the highlight reels and joyous quotes, Haliburton never forgot the swift goodbye. He kept the hotel keycard from his last Sacramento road trip taped inside his locker as a reminder. Nothing's promised in this league. That chip would fuel an all-star leap, a max money extension, and, soon, an underdog finals run Indy hadn't dreamed of since Reggie's heyday. Section 3. Indy Engine. Every small market franchise has a moment when the front office either bets the farm or watches its star bolt for brighter lights. For Indiana, that moment landed at 12:01 a.m. on July 6, 2023, when the Pacers wired $260 million to a 23-year-old point guard whose jumper still made form nerds cringe. The 5-year designated max deal, loaded with a 30% escalator, that kicked in only if he made All-NBA, was the richest check the franchise had ever signed. Haliburton treated the ink like rocket fuel. By Christmas, he was running the fastest offense in the league, flipping Rick Carlisle's old grinded-out playbook into a blur of 5-out sprints. With him on the floor, Indiana's offensive rating ballooned to 122.5, a number that would have looked like science fiction a decade ago. StatMuse.com. Lobs to Miles Turner, skip passes to Buddy Hield, pull-up threes from the Gainbridge logo. Everything flowed from Hallie's elastic court vision. He even weaponized his so-called slingshot release as trash talk, flashing a grin after each make as if to say, "Still ugly, still cash." The numbers answered louder than any meme. 20.1 points, 10.9 assists, 47.7% shooting in 2023-24, good for his second straight All-Star nod and, crucially, an All-NBA third-team slot that triggered the escalator and pushed the full contract value to the headline-grabbing $260 million. StatMuse.com. NBA.com. Suddenly Indiana, a franchise forever measuring itself against the Coastal Giants, had locked in a marquee draw through the peak of his prime. Off the court, Haliburton doubled down on what made him different. He showed up to Media Day with a Naruto headband, slipped anime quotes into pressers, and peppered defenders with nerdy one-liners after no-look dimes. Carlisle, once the embodiment of old-school control, laughed and admitted he'd never coached a player who could roast you with a pass and a Pokemon reference in the same sentence. Reporters began calling the team League Pass legends, because even neutral fans couldn't resist the nightly barrage of flair. ca.sports.yahoo.com. But superstardom in a flyover state carries its own gravity. National talk shows wondered whether Haliburton could shoulder a playoff burden without a second All-Star. Twitter debates flared about his slim frame surviving 82 games plus the new in-season tournament. And lurking beneath every highlight was that contract figure. $52 million per year. A neon reminder that patience in Indiana would wear thin faster than anywhere else if the Pacers plateaued. Haliburton shrugged off the scrutiny with the same levity he used to dismiss shooting form critics. "Pressure," he said after dropping 33 and 14 on opening night. "Pressure is trying to convince my mom anime isn't cartoons." The quote went viral, landed on t-shirts, and somehow captured exactly why Indianapolis had fallen in love. He made greatness feel fun. Fun, however, is fragile. By spring of 2025, the Pacers had sprinted into the Eastern Conference Finals, but the miles showed, ice packs on both calves, kinesio tape snaking up his right leg. When insiders leaked that the training staff had suggested a minutes cap and Haliburton waved them off, fans cheered the bravado while execs winced at the risk to their $260 million investment. The stakes were no longer theoretical, and those stakes would turn combustible the night his father found himself face-to-face with a two-time MVP, setting off a sideline storm that no one saw coming. TheGuardian.com. Section 4. One towel wave. That's all it took to turn a routine playoff handshake line into the NBA's loudest sideline scandal. Moments after Indiana sealed a first-round upset over Milwaukee, John Haliburton, Tyrese's ever-animated dad, leaned over the courtside barrier, whipped a Pacers towel inches from Giannis Antetokounmpo's face, and barked, "How you like Indy now?" Cameras caught Giannis stepping forward, security wedging between them, and John being briskly escorted toward the tunnel. BNSports.com. The league office issued no formal discipline, but the Pacers moved fast. John was barred from the next 8 home games. A decision front-page tabloids blasted as protective, while talk show pundits called it soft. Tyrese stood at the post-game podium with practice calm. Pop's passionate, but that can't happen. Yet his eyes flickered with something between embarrassment and defiance. SI.com. Social media did what it does best. #FreePops trended by sunrise, fans printed memes of John behind imaginary bars, and Charles Barkley went viral for shouting, "Let the man cheer," on TNT. Inside the locker room, teammates teased Tyrese with mock towel waves. Outside, PR staff begged him to convince Dad to dial it down. The more the story ballooned, the clearer the stakes became. One misstep could overshadow everything the Pacers were building. Facebook.com. YouTube.com. 12 days later, with Indiana on the brink of the conference finals, the ban softened. John returned under a zero-tolerance warning, sitting 3 rows up in a navy blazer instead of his usual courtside hoodie. The home crowd greeted him with a thunderous "Pops, Pops, Pops" chant. Tyrese beamed, Giannis smirked from the opposite bench, and the cameras panned to a security guard glued to Dad's hip. Order, at least for the night, was restored. Sports.yahoo.com. AOL.com. But drama has a long shadow. National columnists wondered if Tyrese's family fire might scorch a franchise suddenly wading into title contention. The Pacers brushed it off, until a nagging calf strain on their superstar hinted at a heavier storm brewing. Haliburton would lace up anyway, insisting nothing could keep him from the biggest stage he'd ever tasted. And what happened next would convince every skeptic that the kid from Oshkosh was built for May, right up until his own body called timeout. WSJ.com. Every postseason births a legend, and from the first round Tyrese Haliburton seemed destined to claim 2025 as his own. He diced Cleveland with 30-point, 15-assist clinics, torching Jarrett Allen on step-back threes so deep they curled arena Wi-Fi. When Miami tried blanketing him with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, Haliburton simply upped the pace. Fast-break lasers to Obi Toppin, no-look lobs to Turner, and a viral too-small gesture after a one-leg fade that kissed glass at the buzzer. In 12 playoff games, he averaged 26.8 points, 11.4 dimes, 46% from 3, numbers no Pacer had ever stacked in May. TimesofIndia.indiatimes.com. Pacers.com. But momentum hid a secret. Early in the Eastern Finals, he felt a tightening in his right calf, the same leg that logged league-leading mileage all season. The training staff diagnosed a low-grade strain and drew up a strict minutes cap. Haliburton tore it up. "If I can walk, I can play," he told reporters, flashing that anime hero grin. ESPN.com. He iced, stymied, then stormed back out, dropping 18 points in one fourth quarter against the Heat on what teammates later called a leg made of Jell-O and Red Bull. The gamble paid off, until the finals. Facing Oklahoma City's were of switches, Haliburton willed Indy to a Game 5 win with October 9, 38 masterclass, but cameras caught him limping down the tunnel, thigh wrapped so tight it looked shrink-wrapped. Social feeds exploded with freeze frames of his grimace. Insiders whispered he'd torn muscle fibers clear off the bone. Team doctors insisted he sit. Haliburton shook his head. 48 minutes left to write history, he texted a friend the night before Game 7. "I'm not watching it on TV." ESPN.com. Reddit.com. Tip-off came, adrenaline-masked pain. And then, 6 minutes in, he planted on a routine left-toe-right crossover. From courtside, you could almost hear the calf protest. He hobbled but waved Carlisle away, finishing the quarter on what analysts later deemed pure stubbornness. The Pacers trailed by 2, their engine sputtering. Viewers held their breath as cameras found Haliburton on the bench, eyes closed, mouthing words that looked a lot like, "Please hold up." What happened on his very next drive would silence the entire Paycom Center, shift championship momentum, and ignite a debate that still hasn't cooled. Did the Pacers ride their star too hard, or did Haliburton gamble his body for a ring that was almost in reach? That answer, and the shiver heard across the league, awaits in Section 6. NYPost.com. Section 6. The snap heard around the league. Game 7, Paycom Center, June 22nd. Noise so loud you could feel it in your ribs. Indiana had weathered every storm the Thunder sent, but Tyrese Haliburton's right calf was wrapped like a silencer, a thin blue bandage under white tights. 6 minutes in, he planted on a left-toe-right crossover, pushed off that taped leg, and folded. No contact, no collision. Just a sudden collapse at 4:55 of the first quarter that sucked the oxygen out of 18,203 lungs. Broadcasters mouthed "oh" before they found words. The arena dipped from roar to funeral quiet in 2 heartbeats. ESPN.com. Trainers sprinted. Haliburton pounded the hardwood screaming, "No, no, no," as teammates circled, hands on heads. The Pacers' official report called it a right lower leg injury and ruled him out before halftime. But cameras caught his father, John, telling ESPN sideline crew, "It's the Achilles." ESPN.com. The visual, an ice-cold superstar sobbing into a towel while the cart rolled him down the tunnel, looped on every feed before the quarter ended. With their engine gone, Indiana sputtered to a 103-91 loss and watched shy Gilgeous-Alexander hoist the Larry O'Brien. Haliburton, on crutches, hugged each teammate outside the locker room, a surreal mix of pride and devastation. "If this is the price, I'd still pay it," he muttered to reporters, voice cracking. NBA.com. ESPN.com. Confirmation landed 2 days later, a full right Achilles rupture, surgery completed in New York, and a recovery timeline that could swallow the entire 2025-26 season. NBA.com. Haliburton posted a midnight tweet, "Watch how I come back from this." But even that optimism couldn't mute league-wide alarm. His injury wasn't isolated. Over a brutal 6-week span, Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum suffered eerily similar tears, all in playoff elimination games, all Eastern Conference stars wearing the number 0. Analysts dubbed it the "000 curse," and front offices began tallying mileage charts more anxiously than box scores. Postingandtoasting.com. BolaVIP.com. Retired legend Kevin Garnett thundered on a podcast, "Strengthen your F.ing calves or strengthen your couches." A soundbite that birthed an entire week of hot take segments about condensed schedules, travel fatigue, and modern training science gone wrong. CBSSports.com. The league office insisted it was coincidence, but insiders whispered about everything from slippery new court finishes to the shorter off-season created by the in-season tournament. Whatever the cause, the fallout was undeniable. A conference suddenly missing 3 marquee draws, national TV partners groaning, and Indiana staring at a $260 million superstar in a walking boot. The Pacers front office had 48 hours to decide whether to chase an emergency co-star or punt a season. Rumor mills cranked out names: Kyrie, Trey, Anibal from Madrid, while fans begged for patience and pundits clamored for a swing. Section 7, Fallout and Rumors. Pacers Emergency Playbook. The champagne in Oklahoma City was still cold when Indiana's war room lit up like a stock exchange at opening bell. With Tyrese Haliburton staring at a 12-month Achilles exile, team president Kevin Pritchard slammed every contingency file onto the table. One problem: you don't replace a 26 and 11 engine with spare parts. You triage, patch, and pray. SI.com. First came the quick band-aids. 48 hours after surgery, Indy flipped a future second-rounder in cash to snag Marquette gunner Cam Jones at number 38, then doubled down by stashing Liberty combo guard Talon Peter at number 54. 2 rookies who can shoot and sprint, but neither older than Haliburton's Fortnite username. AnonymousEagle.com. BasketNews.com. Pritchard told local radio the team wanted live bodies who keep our tempo, yet insiders read the subtext: tiny contracts create cap wiggle room for a July bombshell. That bombshell now dominates every group chat. Newsweek leaked that Indiana has renewed flirtations with veteran floor general Chris Paul, waived by Houston and hunting a contender willing to let him rent the cockpit for one last run. Newsweek.com. Other whispers link the Pacers to Chicago's Zach LaVine, or even a wild 3-team swap that ships Trae Young to Indy while Atlanta gobbles picks like Halloween candy. Sports.yahoo.com. Each scenario carries sticker shock, but Haliburton's rehab salary is already guaranteed. Ownership must decide whether to swallow tax now or write off a season. Meanwhile, internal chess pieces slide. Miles Turner's name finally lands on trade machines after 5 quiet years. One SI column claims Haliburton's injury clears the runway to flip Turner for a playmaking wing, effectively punting rim protection for shot creation. Fans are split, half chant next man up in comment sections, half plead for a stealth tank, because a lost year could morph into a top 5 lottery ticket in the deepest point guard draft since '09. The analytics department is anything but sentimental. Axios dug through Achilles data and found only 44 to 64% of players returned to pre-injury form after 2 seasons. Execs know those odds like scripture. Pundits.com. Yet Haliburton's social media rehab clips drop daily, band work, stationary threes, the caption loading, and every like Stokes hope that Indy shouldn't mortgage tomorrow for a maybe. Pritchard's phone will keep buzzing until camp opens, but the clock is louder. July moratorium in 3 days, Summer League in 2 weeks, preseason in 90-something sleeps. The Pacers can either trade for a headline or trust a skeleton crew to run Haliburton's 30-point offense at warp speed. One path risks cap hell, the other risks irrelevance. Section 8. Can he rise again? The hard math says the odds are a coin flip at best. A 2024 meta-study of every NBA Achilles rupture since 1992 found that only 44 to 64% of players returned for 2 full seasons, and nearly a third of those who did were out of the league within 3 years. .com, pmc.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Front office analysts call it the cruelest injury curve in sports. A slope where PER, minutes, and lateral speed all slide south even when the box score looks normal. Yet basketball's modern miracle file holds 2 glossy counterexamples. Kevin Durant came back after 17 months of rehab to post nearly identical scoring splits and a finals MVP. Sports science journals now cite him as proof that an elite scorer can remap his kinetics post-tier. ESPN.com. On the flip side sits Klay Thompson, an icon whose shot survived, but whose downhill bursts never quite returned, trimming 5 points off his average and stealing a step on defense. Facebook.com. For every KD, there's a DeMarcus Cousins. For every Klay, a Wesley Matthews. The pendulum swings on physiology, work ethic, and plain luck. Haliburton is already trying to tip the scale. 5 days after surgery, he posted a clip. Single-leg balance drills, banded calf raises, the caption loading. Over 1 million views later, he stitched into highlight montages alongside rehab gurus quoting Kobe Bryant's, "Everything negative, pressure, challenges, is all an opportunity." LATimes.com. Still, opportunity comes with pauses. His fresh Puma Hali 1 signature sneaker launch is on ice until doctors clear on-court tests. And USA Basketball insiders whisper that Tyrese's penciled-in spot for the 2028 LA Games is now a giant asterisk. Solzavi.com. CBSSports.com. If science offers a wild card, tech is upping the ante. Nike's new Hyper Ice recovery boot, a battery power high top that pumps heat and compression through the ankle, has already landed in Haliburton's locker room, part of a wave of pre-covery gear designed to keep tendons supple before they're stressed. About.nike.com. Combine that with Puma's Nitro Cushion midsole and you get whispers of a prototype outfitted with microsensors to flag abnormal torque in real time. A sneaker acting like an onboard flight recorder for a $260 million asset. So, does the NBA's friendliest superstar script a Durant-level resurrection? Or do the analytic spreadsheets have it right? If the Pacers gamble on patience, they might unwrap a sharper, smarter conductor in 2026, rush the rebuild, and Haliburton could return to a roster that no longer fits his symphony. Either way, one truth hovers. The next time that quirky slingshot release arcs toward the rafters, the entire league will hold its breath. Because futures, fortunes, and maybe even Team USA gold hang on whether that ball splashes or dies on the rim.